welcome to another Ultimate Fighter episode review. I think I said this was probably going to be Music of the Week. No, that's going to be pushed back to tomorrow or some point over the weekend. Hopefully tomorrow. So yeah, another Ultimate Fighter episode to review. Season 29, episode 4, called On My Time. And we'll find out near the end of the review why it's called that. But yeah, got a lot to go through for this episode, so not going to waste any time. So let's just go. So I want to talk about what happened in the Ultimate Fighter house after the last fight. Obviously, Ortega is 3-0 by this point, 3-0 by this point to Ortega. And even though Ryder Newman and Trayshawn Gold were the ones who fought, they still had a really good friendship. So they were just like, you know what, it's business as usual, and they were pretty pally after the fact. And there is another thing that did happen in the house as well, a bit later in the episode, where Trayshawn was cooking a bunch of steaks and scrambled eggs. Now, I'm not an eggs guy. Like, I dabble vaguely in scrambled eggs, but I don't know, I'm not a big egg fan, but they looked really good. And honestly, if I were at the house, I would eat the hell out of that cooking. That looked really, really good. Trayshawn, you're a good cook, mate. I just thought I should let you know. And as well as a really good fighter and just a nice bloke. So yeah, I just wanted to get that sort of thing out of the way because it was the first thing that happened in the episode. And we do have a lot more emotional stuff to talk about, so I wanted to get something a bit more lighthearted and fun out of the way first. So, yeah, we'll just move on now, but I thought it was a really good follow-up to catch us up on what happened in the previous episode. So good stuff. We do actually also have a training session for Team Volkanovski, and, you know, Volk, like, his side is 3-0. And he brings in Michael Chiesa, who won Season 15 of The Ultimate Fighter about 9 years ago. And he brings him in sort of like as a consultant, and Chiesa works quite closely with not Dustin, who's fighting this episode for Team Volk, but a guy named Brady, who is actually a training partner of Chiesa's at a gym that Chiesa trains at, which I forget the name of. But, yeah, Brady is on Team Volk. He's not the one fighting this episode, so I thought it interesting that Chiesa would choose to focus on training with him, especially working over submissions, considering that's what Chiesa is really good at. He's damn good at the wrestling and the subs. But yeah, I just thought it was really cool that they brought Michael Chiesa in, and he's in for this entire episode. I'm fine with that, because I'm a big Chiesa fan, so I'm really glad we got to see him pop up and do some stuff. And it's always nice, because you don't see it a lot in The Ultimate Fighter, and when you do see it, it's always a treat to see someone who wasn't just in a previous season but also won that season come in and coach like, yeah, this is a bloody tough time, lads. You know, I'm going to help you through it as best as I can. And especially for Chiesa, who had a tough time in his season because, like, it was a season that had completely live, and his father was already in hospital and he passed away, obviously, not long after Chiesa won his fight to get into the house. And Chiesa won the whole thing, finished all of his fights if I remember correctly. I could be wrong about one of them. And won the whole season, and he's still in the UFC today. So, if anyone knows what it's like to struggle in that kind of environment, it is Chiesa. So it was very smart for Volkanovski to bring him in. So, really cool that he did that. Next, we do have the backgrounds of the fighters. We'll start with Dustin Lampros of Team Volkanovski. And he talks about the fact that, and this is something that's discussed with another teammate of his, which I believe is Brady. And Brady sort of assumes that Dustin was like an LA kid because of how he looks. Like, he looks naturally tanned, quite handsome looking dude, as most of these people are. You know, got like the really nice looking hair and stuff. But Dustin grew up in a small part of Illinois. I don't remember the name of it. I think it began with an F. And he currently trains in, I want to say Sacramento. I could be wrong. I think it might be Vincent that trains in Sacramento. I don't fully remember and feel dumb for not remembering. But Dustin, like, he doesn't have a lot in the way of family. He has a mother and stepdad. He's estranged from his stepdad. His mother was really, really badly into, I don't want to say drugs because I think that's wrong, but she had a lot of like illness stuff, and she would get abused by Dustin's stepdad. And she did pass away a couple of years ago. So Dustin has a little brother and also a sister, and his little brother especially looks up to Dustin. And honestly, I personally thought that was really, really sweet. And like seeing him just interact with his brother over the phone was actually quite nice too. So yeah, really glad I saw that, and it was really nice to sort of see where Dustin came from. Because like, for the fact that Brady just sort of made this assumption, then he was completely corrected. And honestly, I felt like I I feel like I could have been in Brady's shoes at that point, because I would have made that assumption, and I would have been like, oh shit, I didn't know, I'm sorry, man. So, really glad to see those two sort of bonded over their mutual tragedy, because Brady did have something like similar happen to him as well, with his dad, I think. It was one of his parents passing away due to alcoholism, and it's the reason why Brady doesn't drink. And as someone who also doesn't drink, props. Oh, but it gets somehow more depressing. So I will cover like their fight prep afterwards, but we're going to cover Murdock's background. So he was born like into a really crappy part of a neighborhood in America, and he got into a lot of trouble as a kid. Didn't really have parents growing up. He did eventually find a girl and settled down with her and got married with her, and they're expecting a kid, and hopefully he'll be able to meet that kid when the show's over. I'd really like to see that. And what else is there? Oh, the fact that he was actually signed to the UFC in 2019, and because when you fight like with all mixed martial arts, you have to get like a bunch of tests done. And Vincent wasn't sure about this one thing he had with a brain test, and he was glad that he got it sorted out, because it turns out he has, or had, some sort of brain disease. I don't remember the name of it. It begins with an M, and it's something that like ties up all the arteries in the brain together, and it makes only about half of it work. And by this point, by the way, Vincent has 16 fights on his record, not including the fight he has in this episode. So that's 16 fights where he could have been choked out without tapping, where he could have been knocked out, and that could have done irreparable damage. It could have caused a lot of pain, obviously, you know, and when you're a fighter, that's the thing you have to deal with, a lot of head trauma. And I'm really glad he got that test back, because he's a lot better now, a lot better mentally and physically, and it's sort of shown a new light on life for him, and I'm really glad that he managed to get that done, because I like the guy, you know, and it's just really nice to see something like that happen, and the fact that he came back from it is still going strong. Really, really cool stuff. There really isn't a lot to talk about in the fight prep, if I'm being honest. Dustin works a lot on his bread and butter, which is a lot of his striking. He's a very good stand-up guy. Murdock has a really good stand-up too. My knuckle hit the table there. But his wrestling especially is... He's quite good at his wrestling as well. He's a lot more explosive, I think, in terms of that than Dustin is. And, yeah, those are mainly the training things that they do. But that's not the interesting thing about this. I want to talk about something interesting that happened back at the house, which is that Dustin was way overweight for a bantamweight, about 12 pounds, however, I think was the exact thing. And he decided to cut weight with the help of Gilbert Urbina, who decided to help him mostly because, you know, he will probably have to fight himself soon. So that's a fair point. And but at some point, Team Volkanovski does come over and they sort of like see what's happening. And instead of doing what a lot of other coaches have done in previous seasons, which is like get mad at their fighter for not being in shape, Volkanovski grabs a seat, sits across the sauna tent. I think that's the technical term for it. That's what I think it is, like a sauna tent thing where Dustin is sat in, and they start bonding and they start talking about stuff, and he's helping him through it. And yeah, Dustin sheds a lot of weight in time for the cut. He doesn't shed enough to fully make weight, but we'll get to that in a wee while. But I really liked this moment, you know? It's not something you see, like Team Ortega came over to enjoy the steaks that Trayshawn Gore cooked up after Trayshawn's win, and Dustin is preparing to lose weight for this fight against Vincent, and having Team Volkanovski come over to support him was really nice. I don't know, I just like seeing that sort of stuff in a sport where fully grown men with bad tattoos punch each other in the head. Call me a cynic. Speaking of the weigh-in though, it does sort of go a bit awry. Not for anything overtly bad. Vincent makes weight just fine. When Dustin has to make weight, he is just under a pound over. He's slightly over, is the point I'm trying to make. And he had a little while to lose the weight. And I know this is not what Dustin did, but the way it was edited made it sound like Volkanovski just said to Dustin, go and have a couple of laps around the Apex Center, have a piss, then come back. And it seemed to have worked because when Dustin weighed in the second time, he made weight. But I just thought that was a really strange sort of thing. Like, it really was just like, yeah, get out of a pee, get rid of the excess water, you'll be back. Like, okay. I mean, if just peeing like that solved all my weight problems, I would be a super duper skinny boy by now, you know? Yeah, but there you go, we're going to move on to the actual fight next. And the actual fight was quite good. It only lasted one round. We'll, you know, cover more as we go along with it. So, pretty good start for Vincent, first of all. He's finding his feet quite well, landing a lot of really good leg kicks. Dustin is landing a good couple as well. It is mostly Vincent who's pressuring forward. He's landing some really good strikes. He lands a lot of really good hands, especially on the old chin. He does rock Dustin quite a few times, but Dustin eventually... there is a moment as well, by the way, where Vincent sort of goes for a takedown, but he sees that he's in trouble, and he breaks off in a really wonderful way from the attempt at the takedown. And the coaches are just like, yeah, that was a good breakaway. I was like, yes, it was. Really good disengagement. That was good shit. But yeah, Vincent does keep the pressure up. He does eventually get clipped by a right, though. Then a couple more, and he is staggered a bit by Dustin. But Dustin comes... but Vincent eventually comes back and hits him harder. And it is mostly pretty much entirely stand-up fight up until the end. So Vincent is landing a lot of really good combos. He goes for a left hook to the body, lands a beautiful clean right that knocks Dustin on his ass. Then Dustin's trying to sort of like get away from it. One of Dustin's kick attempts was caught, by the way, a bit before that, and Vincent landed a punch as he had the leg. But yeah, back to the ending of the fight. So he lands a good left-right combo. Lands a really good 1-2 threat this fight, does Vincent. And while Dustin is attempting to get back up, he's sort of on his back. Sorry, he's on his front in a sprawl position. Vincent manages to get around to his back, lands a good couple of strikes, and they get against the cage. Dustin tries to use the cage to get back up, but he's in a good position for Vincent to finish the fight properly, so he lands a vicious knee and a couple more punches, and that's it, and the referee stops the fight. So first round sort of TKO finish for Vincent, and 4-0 for Team Ortega. This fight was actually quite good. Even though it was really short, I liked the finish. I thought it was fun while it lasted. And I expected this fight to be quite a good scrap. I mean, Dustin's nickname is Scrappy after all. So we got something good out of it, and I was actually quite happy to see that this fight was a lot better than I thought it was going to be. So we're going to move on to the next fight. So the next fight announced is going to be Brian Battle from Team Volkanovski versus Cameron Lachanov from Team Ortega. And I think these are both the last picks in middleweight for their respective teams. However, that's not the most interesting thing about this. So, because it took a while for Team Ortega to get there, and Volkanovski starts talking shit, saying that they had to wait like an extra 14, 15, 20 minutes for Team Ortega to get there. And yeah, the coaches start talking a bit of shit back and forth. You know, they're having a bit of fun with it and everything. And there is a funny moment where one of the assistant coaches for Team Ortega, Paul Herrera, gets involved and says, you know, if they listen to more advice, maybe the people on your side would win. And I was like, oh damn. Paul did get shut down pretty quickly, but it was nice to see them like having a bit of a go at each other. It wasn't anything vicious, it was more like in a joking way. And Ortega did take some pleasure in knowing that he got under Volkanovski's skin and like was pissing him off quite well. And yeah, you know, he was. And yeah, there was a fair bit of that back and forth. There was a point where Michael Chiesa was like, you know, just stay in your lane, mate. Like, I'm an actual fighter, you're just an assistant coach. And I was like, oh, damn. Chiesa, going for it? Like, Chiesa's a nice guy, but he, you know, he doesn't want to see the team he's just showed up this episode to help being taken the piss out of from Volkanovski. He was a bit understandably miffed about it as well. So, yeah, that was a good moment. Oh, also, Brian and Cameron were trying to hold like a very steady stare down, but then Cameron broke, and the both of them corpsed. And Brian was like, oh, you son of a bitch, he got me. I like Brian, he's good. So, yeah, that was how this ending part went, and it was also really good. So that will about do it for another episode review. I really like this episode. 4-0 for Team Ortega. I'm on Team T-City all day. I'm looking forward to seeing what the next fight brings, considering that they were both last picked, Brian and Cameron, so that's going to be good. Next thing you'll see me for will be a random gaming stream tonight. Don't know what I'm going to play. Could be anything. Might be Super Hard. Might be Prominence Poker, because that's been a while. Might be some Overwatch. And the next video will probably be Music of the Week tomorrow if I can get that done. But that's for then. As for now, got nothing else to add as always. Thank you for watching, you're awesome. Bye bye.